everybody, and welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week, we're talking about a movie that I picked for us to watch.
But why, Matt?
I have us watch all the Critters movies at this point, so it was funny. I was watching this movie. Well, this movie wasn't funny, but I was watching this movie, and...
Are you serious?
And I thought, God, this movie's, like, fucking tame. Like, this is, like the body count is 2.
2 people, yep.
There's like almost no blood or gore or anything. And then I remembered that I watched this movie for the very first time in this very room that I'm currently recording in when I was like 8.
Oh shit.
Like it was like when you were like trying to like dip your toe into horror movies, right?
Yeah, right.
And Sci-Fi would always show all of the Critters movies, so like I was aware enough of what the Critters were that I was like, this is fine. Like I'm still like afraid to watch like a real horror movie, but Critters is fine. And I was spending the night at my aunt's house. She used to have a pull-out couch up here, and we went to the video store to rent something. And I'm actually pretty sure Brian and I were both here, and we rented Critters 3. And we watched a lot of Critters 3 because, you know, you got a 5-day rental. You're going to get your 5 days worth
Absolutely.
out of that rental.
You keep going back trying to find anything interesting that you might have missed, and it's still not there.
Dude, I think I watched Jaws the Revenge like 8 times when I was a kid because we had a 5-day rental of it. And I'm like, well, it's something new. It's something different.
It's got that new car smell.
Yeah, exactly. Drive it around the block a couple times. But when I was watching this... I do think that this is the worst of the Critters movies.
Dude,
which is
how
like
is this worse than 4 and 5 put together?
Well, there's not a... Oh, I forgot that 5 existed. Well, 5 was that, like...
5 existed.
5 was that Shudder
didn't we do
TV
5?
special. Well,
we did.
Wait,
5 doesn't...
We did
5 is
4?
only the... There's only 4 of them. There's only 4 movies and then the TV series that Shudder produced.
So 3 and 4 were the ones that they were doing at the same time.
At the same time.
Okay,
the ending of 3 is the beginning of 4.
Beginning of 4. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I was confused because I was like, isn't it 4 and 5 that they were doing in tandem? And that was like a year ago. I don't know why my brain sucks so bad.
No, that's all right.
No,
here's the thing.
These movies suck so bad. It's not your brain.
These movies suck. So Critters
Thanks,
and Ghoulies have the exact same track record, which is like number 2 is all the way up here, and then like the next best one is like somewhere down here. Like it's such a giant gap between how good Ghoulies 2 and Critters 2 are in comparison to like Ghoulies 1, 3, and 4 and Critters 1, 3, and 4 that it's just it's chaos. And I think that both of them also, like Ghoulies and Critters, both movies that we have not talked about. We've talked about their sequel. Well, we've talked about a sequel for Ghoulies, but we've talked about the sequels. We never talked about the original movies. I do think that we'd get good episodes out of them, but at the end of the day, probably the first of the franchise is not the worst one in the franchise, but it's definitely the most boring of the franchise.
First is not the worst. Second is the best. Third is the one that we'll put to rest because this fucking movie.
Wow, that was...
Thank you. Thank you. I wish I workshopped it a little bit more, but it was a good response. Good notes, everyone. Thank you.
Well, I do have a note that we need to talk about because I read this trivia factoid and the downward spiral that it sent me through trying to figure something out.
Yep.
Did either of you look up any trivia on this movie, or did you just...
I turned this movie off and tried to forget.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. So this will be the first time you guys hear it. On the uncut Saw DVD commentary track, Cary Elwes says that in 1991 he passed on the offer to play Josh in the movie Critters 2. Now, Josh is the role that Leonardo DiCaprio plays. So I did some math. If this is true, then they were torn between 17-year-old at the time Leonardo DiCaprio, almost young enough for current-day Leonardo DiCaprio to date.
Oh!
Nailed it.
And Cary Elwes would have been 29 at the time. So,
yeah. This is 2 years before.
This is 2 years. This is 4 years after Princess Bride.
Right. I was thinking The Crush. 2 years before The Crush.
2 years before The Crush. So that was who they originally...
That's my frame of reference.
According to him, so one of two things can be true. Thing number one, he just forgot the name of the character that he was asked to play.
How was he supposed to know? On the Saw commentary, he don't remember.
But thing number 2 could be that this was offered to him and the character was supposed to be a little bit older and then they changed it. And the only reason I think that's possible is the line of dialogue when you first meet Leonardo DiCaprio. Because he shows up, the little brother's like looking down the hill, and he grabs the kid's arm to be like, yo, kid, don't fall down, like, be careful. And the girl's like, get off him, you perv. And like,
yeah, that was I wrote that note down because I was like, that is a weird addition.
Okay.
And then she also says, like, you don't even know this guy. And I'm like, I don't know if you would call someone who's the same age as you guy, but then that logic goes completely out the window when the character has an evil stepfather, which is way more pathetic if it's a 30-year-old man.
That would have been amazing if he was 30. He's like, I hate you, Dad. I don't want to go to see the Poors with you.
Yeah, was that guy your father? Stepfather.
Right.
I don't know why this the other weird reality break for me is the idea that these two people who have never met each other before end up at the exact same rest stop only to find out that they are tenants and landlord of a building.
You know, there's so many. We were just talking about a show like this that existed. So I don't know if anybody remembers Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Nope.
But basically, it's a teen soap opera, for lack of a better term, and basically it begs the question: are there only 5 or 6 families in the whole universe that exist? Because they all interact with only each other and nobody else. Like, so, and this feels like that. It's like, oh, they go to the campground and then they go to the rest stop and then they're all in the same apartment complex, but they don't have pre-established relationships, yet somehow the universe has kept them in the same bubble. It doesn't make any sense.
They're actually in purgatory and they need to pay for their sins in their past life.
See, now you're onto something.
Did you realize the critters are little demons?
This is galactic purgatory, and that's why that dude comes back.
I had so many notes for the first 25 minutes of this movie, and then they just stop because then I'm like, what more can I say?
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
It's just more of the same at a certain point.
Can I tell you my only 2 notes that I took?
Sure.
Is one of them calling out that fluorescent lime green oversized hat that our main character is wearing?
I actually have a line that just says, I swear I had that goddamn shirt that Leo is wearing. I had that outfit. It was like a weird abstract design shirt that was in these dark purples, like fuchsia and weird brown black.
It was like PacSun when it was just Pacific Sun. It was not fully.
Well, no, I would not have been cool enough to wear
to
wear PacSun. That was some fucking JCPenney shit right there. For me. But but he's wearing that shirt and I'm like, I swear I had that fucking shirt. And then all the neon hats and the frisbee and the shorts and everything, and I'm like, what an innocent time.
Summer fun, baby.
Yeah, summer loving. Had me some fun.
Had me a blast.
I
think Carrie might have been actually talking about Frank, the character. I feel like he probably makes more sense as Frank, the apartment complex maintenance man.
So
man, that dude sucks.
And
Can you imagine?
His hair was outrageous, man.
I feel like everything about that guy was outrageous, except for his death, which was very.
So here,
which was mild.
The word "tame" is the word of the day for this episode.
Man, you never want to see a maintenance man going through the tenants' painties. We call bras titty panties. Is what we call bras.
They're actually called titty pants.
Titty pants.
They're titty pants. But yeah, I love that bra kind of it should have gotten a writing credit, or I mean, it should have gotten a credit in the credit scroll because it showed up enough that it's kind of like this weird thing.
As much as
if it
the
had
other
a line,
8
it would have
people in this movie.
If it had a line, it would have been eligible for SAG. So SAG, it wouldn't have sagged once.
My God.
Not even once.
The best part about that bra is that its shining moment is when the woman who has her hair in rollers and she's wearing a muumuu, she goes down to Jews. Yeah,
The
perpetual
woman
moomer woman.
unreasonably horny for Charlie the whole movie.
Yeah, odd, just odd. She sees the green goo on that bra, and she's like, "You pervert!" About Frank, I'm like, "Lady, do you not know what human like excretion colors are? Because green does not denote sexy times."
It ain't one of them.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Rarely.
It's not.
Sorry.
Matt, I know it's been a little bit, but
I gotta go to the doctor. So I want to write down one of my notes because there's no way to get here without just reading it.
yeah,
You know that classic road trip tune, "Big Rock Candy Mountain," that everybody sings on road
Man.
trips.
So, do you guys? I wasn't going to use it. I'm not going to use it as my double feature. So I think that now is the best time to make the joke. But I was like, if I was a real sporting man, I would have picked "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou"
Where Art
as the double feature, just because of Big Rock Candy
because
Mountain.
of
That's the only other movie that I can imagine that has that
that's
fucking song in it.
Yeah.
It's so random. The first, like, I would say about the first 20 minutes of this movie is just an early 90s sitcom. Like like the way the jokes are written, the way the characters are presented. So I had a couple examples, right? Like, first of all, Charlie shows up. We'll start here, actually, because this is right before it gets sitcom-y. Charlie shows up. Now, I, as a person who have seen all of the Critter movies, would have had a hard time deciphering what he is trying to tell these children. So people who have zero context of the history of these Krites are like, he's already failing, right? But it leads, this is where the 90s sitcom trend starts, because then we get this like 3-minute flashback montage sequence that like all it needed was any type of like soundtrack loudly playing over top of it to just fit into any Friends clip show, where he's just like, "Ooh, we've been here before. Remember those times, guys?" And then it's just like, "Oh, something strange is going on." Or I guess
it needed a Critters theme.
Or it's like 91, so like I guess it would have been like, "It's all right. He moves in mysterious ways." And it's just like all the scenes from Critters 1 and 2. Then we get this weird joke that I think the kids weren't allowed to say the word shit, and thus it ruins the joke. Because the girl says crap, and then the brother says crap, and the dad's like, "Hey, watch your language up there." And then he gets like the green on his hand and is like, "Shit." And I'm like,
No, I think that it was exactly how it was. It's just not a good joke. It was executed exactly as the writers.
You're writing
it.
The better joke.
Yeah.
For
like,
them.
Congratulations,
They did
I
not.
guess.
Yeah.
well, you know, that's what, but yeah, so there's that. And then we meet Frank and Betty, who just literally have the banter of like two neighbors in any 90s sitcom.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, just insults hurled back and forth towards each other, and him just being like, "Hey, oh, what's going on here?" Which I do, probably the best crafted joke in the whole movie, which is a low-ass bar.
Yeah.
But Frank is holding a fishbowl with a fish in it, and she goes, "So you're dating outside of your species now?" And he goes, "Ha ha." And she goes, "I wasn't talking to you, Frank." Like, and I was like, "Oh, she's talking to the fish." What a writing genius.
Wacky.
Someone could take the first like 10 minutes of this movie and just throw like canned laughter underneath it, and it would throw like the Seinfeld slap bass, and people would just be like, "Oh, I've never seen this."
I think you're going to have to now.
Yeah. Why do we have a TikTok if not for this, Matt?
Jot that
This
down.
was not a good movie. The critter.
Do you feel bad for your choice here?
No, because I think we're getting a good episode. But
The Krites looked sick. I mean, I don't
Yes.
think that I mean,
I think
Critters
this is
4
the best the
only one I
Krites
saw.
looked.
Yeah.
Is like,
Really?
in a
More
weird
than
way.
2?
So here's the thing. I think that because in this one and in 4, there's fewer of them. They're
okay.
able to really like give them all.
It's
some
because
like,
they
extra
only had
detail.
4 fucking
Yeah.
puppets that they had to maintain.
But
Yeah.
That's right.
the puppets just are like super detailed and mobile and kind of impressive. Like they look better than this movie deserves them.
Well, you know what
like-
they were trying to do with this movie was they were trying to do Gremlins.
Yes.
It's
They were
very
also-
obvious.
They were apparently also trying to do Towering Inferno, since it's literally the exact same plot. of like building burning, so let's get to the roof.
I think that like also you're right. So they had this whole like, especially when they're in the kitchen, they just have this whole Gremlins-esque scenario. But then it's the Chiodo brothers doing it too. So then you feel like it is like when the killer clowns get to explore the spaces in which they are, and they get to do like their specific creature things. So I guess this crit's just gonna fart on the stove or whatever the fuck.
Real weird.
And real weird. So that was my only other note, was just the beans.
Yeah,
it's Frank's hair and the beans, and apparently I tuned the fuck out.
I actually, when I saw the beans, now this wasn't my first watch of this, but it was my first actual watch of it. I have fallen asleep to this movie more than once.
How could you?
Who knows? Probably was just high or something. But when the beans were literally spilled by that crate, I was like, "Oh my god, is that crate taking a shit?" Because it was so, it was this weird. It looked like it was coming out of a pouch in its ass, and I was like, "Oh my god, is this how crates shit?
Is this crate shit?"
This movie wouldn't have been above showing us how the crates shit. In all honesty,
I mean, what? We are just writing a better movie. This whole episode is just us writing a better fucking movie.
Would you guys allow us to remake Critters 3?
Yeah. We're not going to go the Passion of the Krites. We're going to go with the third one.
Dude,
we don't need Leo. We need Carrie. We need Carrie for this.
The other thing with this is also that, like, beyond the fact that the death total is very teeny tiny and small, there's so many characters. Like, I'm like, why would you have this many characters survive? There's literally like 12 people in this apartment building.
But they just get to keep living their lives after this is over. There's no problem.
Like, not that I'm pretending that the Critters movies ever had like a crazy high body count, but like,
I feel
there's
like
a lot of people climbing through this apartment.
The ratio of live to dead people is wrong.
But think about this also, is that this entire apartment building is going up, and the Krites only kill 2 people. We don't know if smoke inhalation killed more.
That's true. Maybe the killer came much later in life. Yeah. It's like they didn't die today, but man, the lung disease that they took on inhaling all those fumes, the Krites won in the long run. I do appreciate. But honestly, the only thing I appreciate in this movie is, like you said, the Krites look good. They move around. There's like the one like warning scream that the one does to alert the other ones. But it's like the writers of Family Guy wrote this, because like every single bit goes like 10 to 15 seconds too long.
Yeah. The dude who wrote this is David J. Shao, and he is like a relatively prominent horror, if to me at least, horror nonfiction writer. He's done a lot of like sort of like those encyclopedias of, and like so he's a very knowledgeable horror writer, and then also had done some horror fiction in the 90s as well. Can you
find that on Horror Finds or?
You could, but it's sold out. I'm sold out of Shao, baby. No Chow for you.
I mean, I saw that too. Like, not only does this dude have like some legitimate credentials as like a horror dude, although I mean his credits are wild, because it's like he did this, he wrote like Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, like he wrote like a lot of bad movies, and then out of nowhere he wrote The Crow in 1994, which is like how did you
he write it by himself?
Critters 3, him and John Shirley. But like,
that's the special sauce.
But I'm like, how do you literally go from in 3 years Critters 3 to The Crow? But he's like you were saying, according to Wiki, like he's done DVD commentaries for like The Dirty Dozen, the Green Mile, the original Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like he's like a horror historian.
Because
I think he used to come into Jump Cut Cafe every once in a while, because he wrote The Hills Run Red, which is actually very, very fun.
I liked that movie. I don't know if it has enough panache for horror movie night, but you know, if we're talking about catchphrases, it's on my long list.
So here's the thing: his writing credits up to The Crow is literally exclusively films we've talked about on this podcast. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Critters 3 and 4, and then The Crow.
Yeah.
That is, there's a reason why we've discussed all those except for The Crow, guys.
And then his next film screenplay is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, which is awful.
Was that the which one's the beginning? Was that the one like 2007?
That was 2006.
Yeah, okay. 2006.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the other thing though, is that all of those are studio-led sequels to popular
movies. Then
so you just kind of get jammed up in that, and
he wrote 2 Masters of Horrors and 3 episodes of Creepshow.
Yeah,
I think that the reason why he gets all these offers though is because he knows the source material.
He does. That's the thing.
In his defense, also with at least the Dream Child and Leatherface, those are 2 films that are also infamous studio getting their fucking fingers all over it. So
yeah, I would say he's probably been through the fucking ringer here. As far as films go. I mean, what a dream to be able to work on those properties and then all of a sudden just be like, oh man.
Yeah, you think it's a dream until it's a nightmare, because it's just destroying everything you love and all the work that you've done.
How many of these directors that we absolutely adore have had these stories? Like the one that I jump to all the time is fucking Tobe Hooper, who did his time with studios and was like, fuck that shit, I'm just I'm making small independent movies again. Same with George Romero for many years was just I'm done with it. I think that horror, more than almost any other genre, is definitely a genre that no matter how respected the genre can be, no matter how profitable the genre can be, studios are always fucking terrified about releasing those
What
movies.
about our money?
Yeah, so they have to
too many cooks.
Which doesn't fucking make sense, because they also most of the time have the lowest fucking overhead on the production anyway. So
you're not paying the actors anything. You're giving them mayonnaise sandwiches. I actually just remembered a quick little aside. So a quick aside, and then I gotta find out what Kyle's drinking, and then we should be done discussing this fucking movie. But in last week's episode of April Fool's Day, one of the producers or something comes up to one of the women that was working on the shoot, near the end of the shoot, and he's like, he inferred that she got fat, and she was like, well, you shouldn't have had such a good caterer. And I'm thinking April Fool's Day had a caterer?
Right? How'd they manage that?
I don't know, but I mean, I just love the fact that, first of all, that she clapped back so well, but also the fact that they had more than mayonnaise or ketchup sandwiches there. I mean, it wasn't a trauma.
Well, I was going to say it's not a trauma production.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people there.
Just plain cheese on white bread.
Yeah, exactly. So, Kyle, what are you sipping on, buddy?
It's this takes place in Los Angeles, and I had a Pacifico in the fridge, and Cerveza just reminds me of my good old days out in L.A. Pacifico was my go-to.
What was your
then
go-to
Modelo, then Corona, and then Tecate, and then Corona.
Tecate before Corona? Yeah, I can see that.
But now, but that's just
says the guy who was just drinking a fucking Rolling Rock during the crush. Megan picked this one for me. It is Urban Artifacts Astronaut Food, and it is my hands have not gotten larger. It is literally 8 fluid ounces because 15%. It's a freeze-dried fruit tart ale, and I don't know how you're actually supposed to drink this, because it's like drinking a fucking Go-Gurt that can get you drunk.
That's bonkers.
I almost want to bring you one next time we see each other. I didn't know they
could sell 8 ounce.
15. What? This was very, very expensive for it being for Critters 3. This was probably the full budget of Critters 3 right in my hand here, guys.
I also couldn't. I just didn't get out in time to get a beer and then before the snow came too. So I'm glad I had at least a Pacifico in my fridge. But that looks nuts.
It tastes good. It's just the consistency it's very thick.
Is it thick?
I mean, I like peach flavored things. Yeah. It doesn't. I'm also taking the tiniest little sip, so it doesn't feel 15% to me. But I don't know if I would suggest it. It's not as bad as a Hard Mountain Dew, though. That's all I gotta say.
All right. Well then.
We have to do a ranking, end of year ranking.
Ooh, man, that's a lot of work, but we can make Matt go back and find out what we were drinking. We'll get the sober dude to the teetotaler to find out what beers we drank for the last 52 episodes.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
So Matt, what are you after making this poor life decision? What other poor life decisions are you gonna make tonight?
So, before I say the movie, I'll say, look, director of this movie is a fucking monster, and I apologize. But
oh no.
I wanted to watch another movie, arguably a better movie. Not arguably, it's a better movie. A better movie that involves a bunch of people in an apartment complex trying to escape a killing machine. So I went with Hardware as the double feature for this.
Who's the
That's
director?
a Richard Stanley. That's Richard Stanley's
yeah.
first movie. So, but yep, a movie that up until recent revelations was on my long list, and then I said,
and you know the funny thing is that we discussed that in Reddit Horror Club in the first.
It was like one of the first
months,
ones.
I want to say that was my first experience with Hardware, and while it's not a bad film, it can stay in the past.
I can live a happy life, never seeing it again though. It's
I'm not like, man, the show real. You know what this show needs?
A little bit of Hardware.
Yeah. All right. So how about you, Scott?
I am gonna go with The Wolf of Wall Street.
Ooh,
very.
Because both of them are voracious. The Kreitz eat people, and Leo eats all the drugs.
Well, and with this movie being approximately like an hour and 10 minutes, and that one being 3 hours long, when you watch them back to back, it's like you've watched two movies, normal length movies.
Yeah, exactly. Kyle,
I'm gonna go with Munchies.
Are you really gonna go with Munchies? Because we've done that on the show, and it's not a winner.
Okay, I'll go with Munchie.
No, Munchie's even fucking worse because wait. Is Munchie the one?
Dom DeLuise is the voice, and it's a kids movie.
Oh, I remember that, but don't they like jive talk in Munchies?
I can't remember,
I
man.
think
I
they're
watched
in
all
the
of those
car
once and then
they-
let them dump out of my brain.
Bullshit. You watched Munchies more than once because you made me watch it.
No,
Didn't you pick that, or did Brian pick it?
No, listeners voted on that one. That was that
you
was when
sons of bitches.
That was so early in the show. That's when it was literally like 3 host picks and a listener emailed list before
man.
we regulated that to a month.
And
said, all right,
I want to be very clear that was my decision. That has nothing to do with Matt. Matt is a sweet person who believes in you, listeners. I know better. You guys are terrible.
It was make that decision or lose Scott on the show.
No.
All
It was
right.
a very complicated time in our lives.
It was not a great time. Also, I'll ask this question on the air. I don't give a fuck. I was thinking that now that it's been 8 years and X amount of different co-hosts, do we ever want to look at like our first 50 episodes and be like, man, we should maybe consider doing this again?
The movies? Yeah, sure. We could do the
so
first
maybe
50.
we'll do that. Maybe we'll put together a list of the first 50.
When did Brian hit? Did he hit after 100?
He hit in like 125 or something like that.
Well, then we could just say whatever we want in the first 100. There's some fucking gold in there that I. But the thing is, here's my caveat: is I want Brian back. So
we need Brian back.
Enjoying
we need the 4 of us,
shit.
and I think that we'll just put together a list, and every once in a while, as a bonus for being part of the Facebook group, we'll just put it up as a poll. Hey, which one of these 5 options would you want us to do a reviewing of?
But Matt, then the next question, the final question.
The final question.
Yeah, that was their original that was the original lyric, and then the producer came in and was like, it doesn't have enough pep, y'all. It's exactly what it sounded like. Anyway,
we need some urgency.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the synth came in. So Matt, what do you want to pimp today on the show?
Well, it's a tiny indie film that really could use some help. The Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. Now, I saw Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. I think I'm the only one on this call that's seen it at this point.
I just wait until they hit. I can't do Marvel movies in theaters because they're too fucking long now.
So I'll give you this: hour 50. Like, it is, by Marvel standards, it's a fucking short movie.
Yeah, that's an 80-minuter compared to their usual.
It's not the best movie they've ever made. It's certainly not the worst movie they've ever made. But I will say that I thought Quantumania was a nice sigh of relief after what I thought was like a very strenuous Phase 4. Like, if this
Phase 4
is
was
like
pretty bad.
Like, if this is like setting up what Phase 5 is going to be, it's like, all right, well, Kang's a badass as a villain. It was funny. It's honestly, Scott, I think you're going to love it because you're going to love it for the same reason that I loved it and Jonathan hated it, Jonathan didn't hate it. Jonathan was lukewarm towards it. But it just feels like a Star Wars movie. Like, the whole time, like, it feels like a good Star Wars movie because it's just a bunch of different crazy alien creatures and like it's kind of goofy, but then it gets like actiony. It's the most that Ant-Man has felt like it's part of the Guardians of the Galaxy world where it's like really bizarre and out there. So I had fun with it. It's definitely not a masterpiece. Shut your brain off, have fun, and I mean everyone and their mom is worshipped. Yeah. Everyone and their mom is correct in praising Jonathan Majors' performance. The dude is just a fucking beast in these films.
The best,
he's going to continue to be for the next, 7 years that he's going to be showing up in every one of these movies.
Dude's going to get rich.
And, I made a joke about, trying to help out the small guy. So in all seriousness, I do want to help out a smaller company, Apple TV, which...
Man, I hope the listeners have made it this far because all the jokes are in the fucking bumper right now.
I was talking to someone about it the other day. I was texting Scott about it a little bit the other day. I was texting Chris from One Hit Thunder. Apple TV, unfortunately, because they put out one show at a time or whatever. No one has Apple TV, but I have now watched Ted Lasso when it was airing. At the time that this is coming out,
to have it.
Yeah, at the time that I'm recording at the time this is coming out, the third season of Ted Lasso has begun. So if you're getting Apple TV to watch Ted Lasso for the third and final season, while you're doing that, might I also recommend with that month or two that you have the app, Severance is fucking unbelievable. And I'll do a quick short pitch on that. And I just started watching Acapulco, which is also in that exact same vein as Ted Lasso, where it's just fucking feel good, wholesome television. So the super quick elevator pitch on both. Severance is a super high concept sci-fi series about an office building that implants a chip that splits your brain. And when you walk into the office building, you have no memory of who you are outside of that building. You only know of the work that you do. And then the second you leave the office, you have no memory of what you do for work at all. And 8 hours of your life has just vanished in the blink of an eye.
Consensually?
Yes, you do have to agree. You have to agree to the process.
Okay.
But the show follows, the main character is Adam Scott, and it follows as he's on the outside world, he's lost his wife. He's a depressed, grieving man, and that's why he agreed to this, because he wanted the 8 hours not thinking about it. But in the office, he's the peppy, everything's great kind of guy. But as things dig deeper, no one knows what they do there or what their job is or what their purpose is or and they become more and more curious about who are they outside of that building, and it starts to create this crazy split personality disorder with every single character. And it's watching the descent into it kind of gives me a lot of it almost reminded me in a weird way of how do I word this? The Daniel Isn't Real poster.
Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
if that poster was a show.
Yeah. Right on.
So I highly recommend it. And then Acapulco is literally just like this nice little show, half in Spanish, half in English, about it's almost like The Princess Bride. It's a great uncle telling his nephew the story of how he became so rich, but it's all about him being a teenager in the 80s working at this like resort that's on the border of the United States and Mexico, and like it's just a very sweet like fantastical romance coming of age story. But like I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in and it's just like, oh, this is great. Like they're just like 30-minute warm hugs every episode. So recommend both of them. It was the perfect thing to put on after Severance, where I was like, okay,
Yeah,
my
you
brain
need a
just
little
broke
breather.
for 9 episodes, and now I just feel happy again. All right, who wants to go next? Scott, Kyle, fight it out.
I'll do it. So Megan and I watched a not very recent movie. I think it was from like 2017, maybe. But it's called The Age of Adeline. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
It's a fantasy, sci-fi. Let's just call it a sci-fi drama romance. It's starring Blake Lively, also known as Ryan Reynolds' wife, also known as my wife's other wife. Conceit of the movie is that Adeline, played by Blake Lively, is forever young because of a freak accident in the 30s, I want to say. Her daughter was like 8 years old or something like that. And so Blake Lively stays 28 or something like that forever. And it kind of does a little bit of history of, and it does the interesting thing where it goes from the present and then it goes back in time to explain kind of more interesting details. The idea is that it's in modern time mostly, and Adeline has never really been able to have a regular life because she's afraid that if people found out that she was immortal, and forever young too. I mean, it's not just immortal, it's like she does not age. She would become a test subject because like right after that happened, they almost caught her and took her in, and this was like in the 30s or early 40s, something like that. So she spent, 80 years or something like that, 70 years, just every 10 years, every 6 years, or whatever it is, she takes on a new persona. And then she meets this guy, and she's like, and her daughter, who is now in her 80s or late 70s or something like that, is like, you've never had love in your life, and why wait any longer? Because she said something to the effect of like, you're not getting older, and she's like, no, I'm not. It's a really good movie. It's like a good movie, right? But it also has this I had this problem with it where I was very frustrated by the actions written for Adeline. I understand that she was kind of in a position where she had to do these things, and she wasn't a bad person. She was just she just made decisions that I didn't like, and she reacted to people in ways that I didn't like. So I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. I was very happy to watch it. Megan loved it. I love spending time with my wife, and I love when she loves movies. So check it out if you got somebody that you want to spend a nice 2 hours with and just feel good. So Kyle, hit us up. Take us home.
I watched Heavy Metal from 1981 for the first time.
Was your first watch?
Nice.
Today?
Nice.
Man, that was... Oh, I didn't know it was an anthology. Mm-hmm. I don't really think I knew or understood completely what it was. But comic book movies are a totally different thing now, right? And it kind of like gave me this warm, fuzzy feeling of like, oh, comic book movies are not just like Marvel. Like they're not just,
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily grow up on comics or comic book movies, even really for that matter. Like it was not really in my wheelhouse, and actually doing horror finds probably introduced me to more comics than anything else in my life. So horror comics or, dark fantasy or sci-fi, any interesting shit is cool. So like seeing Dan O'Bannon as one of the writers, but then also seeing Bernie Wrightson as one of the writers of the stories, and then realizing that it's going to be an anthology, and then I mean, it's also like, I don't know, the animation's cool. It's weird. It's sexy. It's like dark. I love particularly the first segment, which the name I'm totally spacing, Harry something, where they do this 2031 dystopian New York, where like I just was obsessed with what that looked like, and then it kind of fades for me as far as like
it overstays
interest.
its welcome a little bit to a certain extent, but I agree. Like, there's something about Heavy Metal that when I finish watching it, I almost want to put on Creepshow 2 afterwards.
Sure,
like it has like a similar
sure.
like anthology animation style mixture happening with it, but
Yes.
yeah, it's a good movie. It's fun though. It's popular for a reason.
Yeah, no, I was like, I guess the first time I heard about it was when we did our documentary, and then I had to pull clips from it, and then never watched. I just hadn't watched it, and that was fucking 5-6 years ago now. So like, I finally we had a snow day here. Hunter was down for a nap. I was going to take a nap myself, but I was like, I'll just put something on, and then I ended up staying up and watching Heavy Metal, and it was fun. It was a fun experience. So on to Heavy Metal 2000.
Nice.
Have fun. All right. Well, that was Critters 3, as brought to you by your favorite boys over here at Horror Movie Night. We're so close to episode 400. I mean, at the time you're hearing this, it's already been recorded. We did Creature Feature. We were doing it live, and it was a good time. But
isn't that partially why you chose Critters 3? Because of Chioda Brothers?
No.
No.
That would have been a good explanation. But no.
Run it back.
But we will be back with even more Horror Movie Night next week.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.